for tuning into this conversation. My name is Rosanna, and I'm a mental health professional and an associate with Posh at Work, which is a boutique firm impaneled with the Ministry of Women and Child Development. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of being in conversation with Smriti Makarmida, one of the co-founders and partners of Posh at Work. Along with being an instrumental part of the firm, Smriti is also a clinical psychologist and a psychotherapist and has been working with individuals for several years now, facilitating processes and conversations around accessing strength and hope, responding to trauma and distress, and building healthy relationships. Smriti has also worked closely with organizations to provide mental health support to employees and empower people in leadership roles to respond to crisis. Smriti, it's so wonderful to be able to share space with you here today.
Thank you, Rosanna. It's a pleasure to be here.
Just to contextualize this conversation for everyone today, we are going to talk about mental health and well-being in the context of the pandemic. Most of us are already acutely aware of the weight of the changes and challenges that the last year has brought into our lives. But how is this impact really influencing our emotions and our behavior? What has been happening just underneath the surface, just under the surface? I think the hope for today is that this conversation will inspire us all to take a moment to just pause, to breathe, and to bring back the focus to what it means for us to experience positive mental health. Smriti will not only be unboxing terms and ideas, but she'll also be sharing with us helpful tools and tips, practices that are going to help us to cope better, to be more self aware, and to help us unlock better levels of well being. I just want to say, for those of you tuning in on YouTube, please feel free to use the chat option to share your thoughts, your feelings, or any questions that you may have. We will definitely respond to the questions as they come up. So, with that, Smriti, is there anything you'd like to add, or shall we begin?
All right. I just want to firstly check, can you hear me properly?
Absolutely. Loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, I just want to thank you for this introduction, Rosanna, and just to create the space for to have this conversation. I'm just hoping people who are listening to us today, everyone is keeping safe as well. Their loved ones are keeping safe and well too.
Yeah. Okay, Smriti, so let's begin. And I think, it'd be important to begin with context, and to understand really what we are talking about. So, when we talk about mental health impact of the pandemic, what does it really look like? What has really been going on?
I think a lot has been going on. And when you talk about pandemic, I guess there is a parallel pandemic that is underway right now, a silent one, which is the mental pandemic we are trying to address today. And just seeing the duration of it, it's been going on for the last 1.5 years that we've been in this pandemic, and it has taken a toll on each one of us in very different ways. And I think it has also impacted each one of us, each group, each community in very different ways. And if you have to really take a moment to pause and to acknowledge all that has been going on and its impact on the mental health. Look at, for example, the healthcare workers who've been working around the clock and to put themselves out there in close proximity with people who are tested positive and having to live with that fear of what if they contract COVID. Which is not even limited to them, but also to their family members. So in my practice, I do work with a lot of clients where I do see people who have been struggling with COVID or the anxiety of what if they could contract COVID as well. And a lot of family members of healthcare workers have reached out, saying that we are in such close proximity with our family members who are in this field. We are worrying every single day for their safety and for ourselves also. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there is, we know that they have to do this. There is gratitude, but it also takes a mental toll on each one of us. Mm-hmm. There also in terms of the communities who are just trying to volunteer and be available for people to support them in terms of volunteering, in terms of the oxygen cylinders, health beds, getting access to plasma donors, and just to be in such close proximity to those people with the real life situation. And they talk about that they're experiencing grief, a sense of helplessness, of not being able to support. There was one person who spoke about how a person had called them for an ambulance and they said that it's going to take 244 days for the ambulance to reach you. And that's what they had to say. And the person is breaking down. while saying these things. And so that is taking a toll. And then for each one of us to be able to live through this and to constantly worry of and anxiety and the fear that we test positive, how are we going to manage it, what will happen to our people who are dependent on us, a lot of that. And grief is again something that we are noticing as part of this pandemic. Uh, Grief and loss, just not of loved ones, but also of a sense of normalcy, uh, of being able to get back, just to do things that they used to do, the mundane things that people used to do every other day, going to office, uh, going for a trip, going to a restaurant for a meal, going for a movie, all that is lost. Students have been deeply impacted by this, having to turn to online classes, loss of socialization, which is also getting parents worried. We're seeing a lot of stress and anxiety coming in people who are trying to pursue higher studies and are planning to go abroad. And there's a loss of opportunity for not having the experience, those rich experiences of being part of a different culture. So when you're really talking about this, there's a lot happening at the mental level and the emotions are on the entire spectrum, from loneliness, anxiety, fear, worry, anger, irritation, annoyance, drop in motivation levels, guilt, grief. So there's a lot that's happening underneath us.
Absolutely. Smriti, I'm also hearing you say, two things. There are, people at the front lines or people who are directly experiencing loss. But there are perhaps another segment of people that are witnessing this loss, witnessing this chaos, and witnessing all that's going around, just in the community and at the community level. And what would the experiences of these people look like? Are they also responding to grief? Is it okay to feel grief when something hasn't happened to me directly?
Yeah. I think a new terminology has come around this time, which is called collective grief. I think all of us are grieving collectively, just not for ourselves, but what is happening around us. We can see the misery, the world is burning around us, and we see that people responding to it in different ways. Some people are just shutting down completely, withdrawing, not wanting to even watch the news, follow the news. Some people are lashing out. There is a lot of anger. If people have been following the news, as when there were these anger outbursts that happened, people lashing out, to the healthcare workers in hospitals because someone has succumbed to it, and they were not people who were immediately from the family, but even outside those groups as well. And just witnessing it also brings it a sense of sadness for people, uh, and that they're responding to it also in terms of by even bargaining with the situation that it's going to come to me, then what's the point? And then just sheer helplessness that comes along with it. Yeah. Uh, so to give you more context also of how people grieve, there are different models of grief as well. But just to contextualize for people, for viewers to understand what happens. So there's Kubler-Ross, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with a model which spoke about starting with denial. Where he said that it cannot really happen to me. Something with being in a zone of delusion that this won't reach me, which was also something we were noticing a lot last year. Or people say, can we just perhaps go for a trip? Nothing's going to happen. Then there is also anger, where people are lashing out, like I was talking about. A lot of outrage, a lot of anger, irritation, annoyance that is building up towards the authorities, towards ourselves also, especially if we have lost a loved one, and being stuck in those what ifs. What if I had reached out to that number that was calling me? The fact that I could get admission maybe 100 kilometers from here. What if I had taken my family member there? The fact that someone has contracted positive because we went out, and we got okay, but they didn't. So then there is that anger towards ourselves, also resulting in survivor's guilt. There is bargaining happening, trying to just say that okay, it's going to happen to me, so what's the point? Or the fact that I have already been vaccinated, if I do get out, I do get it also, it'll be mild symptoms. So those are ways of again grieving that. Sadness, I think a lot of sadness we're seeing here, especially during this period, is for not being able to be with our loved ones when they are struggling with COVID and are in the hospitals or even have succumbed to it. There is a lot of sadness that people are carrying because they were not there in their last moments to hold their hands, or to even honor them with the rites, because as all of us know, we do not even get to see those people who have succumbed to it. The hospitals take care of it with the final funeral, cremation, or all the other possibilities as well. which takes a long way, because I think how we would even mourn otherwise, that will really help people to move towards acceptance would be, practicing 13 days of mourning, uh, going to those houses, just being with them, sitting next to them, not letting them cook, providing with food and all that support, which would also help them to move towards acceptance, right? Which is again is not happening. So this has been a hard time. So if you, and again, this, like I've spoken about these different stages, it does not always happen in a linear fashion. There's a lot of back and forth also happens, but people could be grieving and could be in any of these stages at this point in time, whether they have witnessed loss themselves, whether they have experienced loss themselves or witnessed it. And again, like I said, loss is just not of loved ones, it's loss of a lot of things, even opportunities. People have lost jobs, people have been unemployed, finances, and so much. So people are grieving on the entire spectrum for different aspects at this point in time.
Smithy, I've heard people say, this very interesting thing. I don't know if I can call it interesting, but to me it is. When people want to acknowledge that they've lost something or that they're not okay about something, right? They tend to say something like, oh, but it's just that I can't dress up and go to work. Other people are suffering so much more than me. Can I even say this? Do I have the right to even be throwing a tantrum, so to speak, about this when it's so small in the larger scheme of things, when other people's suffering is so much greater, right? And what is this that's really coming up? What are people responding to when they speak this way, or speak to themselves this way? What is this really?
Right. And you said very interesting that people think this is so small in the larger scheme of things. And small for whom? Small in comparison to what? Because when I am experiencing it, it's huge for me. It's an enormous feeling that I am experiencing right now. Yes, if you compare to someone who has lost a loved one, it may seem small, but it's not small for me. It's my experience. And
Mhm,
experiences can never be small or trivial or wrong, because it's an
mhm,
experience we are going through, and we are justified to feel the way we are feeling. And it's okay to mourn that loss as well. It's okay to feel that sense of emptiness, even when there's been no tangible loss of a loved one or something else, or of an opportunity. But it's still a loss I
mhm,
am experiencing, and it's absolutely okay. And what you're saying is this guilt that has really come in right now.
mhm,
Of people say that, there's so much happening around me. Can I really allow myself to grieve, to feel bad about it, or am I just being very insensitive to other people? Yeah. And this survival skills, it's almost like a survival skills that people are having right now. And the challenge with this would be, which is also contributing to this silent pandemic that we're talking about, is not acknowledging the emotion. Because the more we suppress it, it will find its way to come out in other ways, because we have not acknowledged it, we have not addressed it, we have not navigated through it. Yeah. And that feeling is not going to go away, right? Just because I say, okay, this is small, feeling's not going to go away. It's going to come back in your behaviors, in your stressful responses, drop in productivity levels, feeling aches in your body, insomnia. There's a new word that's coming out of COVID somnia, chronosomnia, very rampant. So it is going to get manifested in some way or the other, either at work, with drop in productivity levels, in your body physiologically, pains, aches, insomnia, loss of appetite, in your behavior responses, being snappy, wanting, being withdrawn, getting into more space of solitude,
mhm,
so on and so forth.
mhm. So, and I'm hearing you talk a little bit about, this has been a prolonged situation we are in, right? And we've been here for over a year in this state of sort of helplessness, uncertainty, hopelessness, even, right? Not knowing what to do next. And you've touched upon it a little bit in what you're saying, but I want to know what is really happening within us when we are in these kind of situations for so long, right? What are these emotions that are coming up, and what are these emotions really trying to tell us, even? What is happening on a bodily level?
Right. So I'm going to respond to this question in a twofold manner. Firstly, let's understand what is really happening with our bodies, right? Like you said, that no, we've been in this situation for the last 1.5 years. We have been responding with a lot of stress, anxiety, fear. Yeah. And our default mode of responding to any stress is fight or flight response. Yeah. Which goes back into terms of how our body is trying to protect ourselves. If you look at the the main reason for us is to survive. That's right. So, and right now, with COVID, there's threat to survival. So our body is going to get into fight or flight response. Now, what does that really mean? If we really look at historically, what was used to be a threat to a survival? There could be perhaps being attacked by an animal, or there could be some another natural calamity. So I had to either, right, say for example, fight the animal, say a tiger, for example, or to flee away from that situation, right? Which means that our body needs energy, either to punch or to flee. Yeah. And for us, our body to have that energy, our body going to start working accordingly. So there's a sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So our sympathetic nervous system gets activated during a stress response, which would mean the fact our muscles are going to get tensed. We are going to breathe harder. We have to make quick decision making. So there's a lot of gush of blood going towards the brain. We need to be hyper vigilant, so our sense organs get are more vigilant during this period at this point in time. So now imagine COVID like a tiger. Yeah. And now, would you even think of, okay, now there's a tiger sitting in my room. Would I want to go and make some breakfast or lunch for me? Would I feel hungry? Would I think of catching a nap? Would I think of, okay, let me see which new series have come on Netflix and sit down and watch in front of that and focus and get engrossed? Very unlikely, right? And
Very
COVID is that for us. So with COVID being around, our body has been a stress state for the last 1.5 years. That means it's been in a fight or a flight mode in that space for the last 1.5 years. And as a result of this, there is insomnia, loss of appetite, not being able to focus on anything, loss of interest, drop in motivation. This is what how we've been responding to. The other thing has been now because there's so much of energy that is bottled up inside our body, there is no release. Because of COVID, we can't even step out. So something that was so much, earlier we would say basic stress management techniques would be go for a walk, distract yourself, move outside the house, go for a short break, meet a friend. None of that is possible during COVID. Yeah.
Mhm.
But the energy, but the mind as a body doesn't know that. So there is still so much of energy inside us. And as a result of this, we need to engage in some kind of movement. Like in some of my clients have started watching the smartwatch again, which they had stopped wearing, and at least clocking, if not 10,000 steps, at least 5,000 steps. Taking calls while walking. So those are some ways they have started introducing movement, doing meditation, pranayam, breathing exercises again to be able to get their heart rate back, trying to fool their bodies as well, or trick their bodies by eating food, even if they don't feel like eating it. So these are the ways how we can respond to it. I know you didn't ask that, but I'm going to still take that liberty to respond to this aspect. The
Sure.
other thing that I want to respond to what you said, that what we are feeling, it's very important to acknowledge it because our feelings come in for a reason. Each feeling that we have serves a purpose. It tells us what we value, what we need, and we need to start paying heed to it. A challenge I see with that in our culture especially is because we have not been really trained to use different kind of emotions. If today you ask someone how are you feeling, people will say okay, not okay, I'm sad, I'm upset. Even pre-pandemic times, I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry. Fairly limited emotional vocabulary, right? But each word would have a meaning. Say for example, I'm feeling lonely right now. Why? Because I value relationships. I'm There's anger that has come in. Why? Because I can notice something that's happening which is unfair. There is some injustices happening. It's illuminating those injustices for me. Uh, I'm I'm grieving right now. Why? Because there has been a loss of an attachment figure, loss of identity, loss of this assumptive world that I had. Right? There is anxiety because it's trying to warn us that there is something that could be a threat to your survival. So each emotion has its function and its purpose, and that's where you need to start listening to those. Firstly, noticing it, acknowledging it, and then we can work through it. And if we do not, we suppress it, we are going to get stuck. And emotions are going to find a way to release in unhealthy manners, and maladaptive responses are likely to follow.
Mhm. Mhm. Smriti, something that's standing out to me when you just said this is perhaps this is like almost an invitation for me to make friends with my own emotions, even the ones that I want to ignore. And just want to understand, you know, is it going to be helpful, and what would be the first step to really acknowledge, identify, and understand these emotions?
I think first step would be to take a pause. Uh, And I think if we have viewers here, just for them to just take a pause right now and ask yourself, what are you feeling right now? What has been the dominant feeling the last 1 month? And I think it's been so long that we've been disconnected with our emotions that just to even identify it will take some time. Maybe just take a pause to breathe. Just just be with your breath right now as you inhale and as you exhale. And I think these are the first steps to just to be with yourself and not be in this hustle culture that seems to have come about right now. There's this constant pressure to be wanting to do something. If you really look at in during the COVID time, pandemic time, especially last year people were posting all these on their Instagram, Facebook, different social media platforms about things that they're doing, and then people would think to ourselves that people are doing so much, and what am I really doing myself? And then this guilt would kick in, almost calling productivity guilt and pandemic guilt. Some people even went on to say that if you're not doing anything, if you do not emerge with a new skill out of this pandemic, that's not because you didn't have time, but because you lack discipline. And
Mm.
look at the kind of judgments that are coming in right now, where it's not really, it's almost like shaming people for pausing, for being in touch with their emotions, and shaming people for not doing something new. And there's this pressure on us, right? And as a community, we need to start creating space that it's okay if you're not doing anything right now. In fact, the best thing at this point in time is to go with your own pace and not let the world tell you how you need to be during the pandemic.
Mhm. Smriti, that's really, I think something, that really kind of stayed with me is what you mentioned about productivity guilt and how, people would be shamed for even not being able to match up to other people and what other people have managed to do with their time. But I think what we tend to lose sight of is the fact that everybody's situation is so different and everyone is really just responding to what's happening right here, right now for me. So even though, you know, even though people around me are baking bread and baking cakes and traveling, somehow managing to travel, I don't know, maybe that's not possible. Those aren't possibilities for me where I am right now, and I think it's important to also be able to accept that. um and you spoke about a couple of things, Smriti, right now. You spoke about how people were responding in the beginning, when the first phase, the first round, the first forced lockdown. And I'm wondering, have you seen that evolve over time? Do you see a change in the way people had been responding, are responding now? What have people done to be able to make it up until this point, survive up until this point?
And then again, I'm going to respond in two ways here. I think yes, it has certainly evolved. I think last year there was a lot of excitement around pandemic itself. Not, I mean, anxiety was obviously there, but there was also time the fact that we can work from home. We can be around our children, which has not been a possibility. So many sectors who never fathomed that they could work from home were able to do that. Organizations worked around systems to be able to make it to enable their employees to work from home for a long period of time. Conversations like these, sessions like these, we never thought that it could happen virtually. People have been so receptive to it. So there was a lot of excitement about this because there was a lot of novelty attached to it last year. Of working from home, not having to commute to work. You get up in the morning, you sit at the workstation, take a break when you want, and you can getting more time at your hands as well. People said that they're able to reconnect with their hobbies, their interests, pick up a new skill. Uh, so there was some bit of excitement, relief as well for not having to go out and not being exposing ourselves to those situations. But in this year, in the second pandemic, second wave, that we're noticing that there's no novelty, right? We don't want to reconnect with that. We've pursued our hobbies, done that baking bread, painting, reading that we've not been able to do for the past 15, 20 years of our life. And now we want those mundane activities back. So the novelty, firstly, has faded away. Secondly, it has taken emotional toll, right? Because as humans, we are people who want to belong, want to connect, want to relate with people. We need that social connectedness, yeah, which is not happening. We feel warm and fuzzy when we get that hug, when we get that peck on the cheek, right? When someone just holds our hand. None of that has been possible in this year. right? Which is again has taken a sense of loneliness, sense of emptiness that has really come in. The other thing we're taking is also taking emotional toll because it has hit closer home this year. Last year, we had heard cases about people succumbing to testing positive, but not as many people succumbing to it, right? It was happening in other parts of the world, in India, but not as close as this year. I think each one of us now know at least, uh, I think 1 in 3 people almost who have either tested positive, and about maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 who have succumbed to it also. So it has really hit closer home right now, which was not the case last year. So that's where it has really evolved from the last year to this year about the experience of it. Uh, I lost my chain of thought. The other thing I had to respond to.
How are people responding to this change in scene, this change in pace?
Yeah. So I think this has so now because it's been going on for a long period of time. Now imagine again the fight or flight response, the stress response that has been there. So now people are responding to by there is drop in motivation levels, fragmented attention, a sense of emptiness. There is no interest, loss of interest in even doing things that they used to enjoy doing earlier. Almost a word called languishing that has really come about. I think some of the viewers may even know about the term. There was an article written by Adam Grant in New York Times, which was doing the rounds on WhatsApp. The term has been fairly familiar in the mental health professionals fraternity. We have used the word, which talks languishing generally talks about that you're not really showing mental illness symptoms, but there is low mental well-being that's taking place right now. Yeah, that people are not burnt out yet. They are. It's not that you are experiencing clinical depression. Uh, it's not that you're experiencing hopelessness, but there is still hope. But you are getting into a vulnerable group. You're becoming getting into a high risk group at this point in time. So this languishing is a term which I think has also brought in a lot of solace and comfort for people to know that what is this feeling blah. That I'm not up for it. I'm feeling very blah today. Meh, and those are the feelings that languishing really captures of not wanting to get up in the morning, not being able to get through the entire day, not being able to pay attention or focus on anything, just losing interest, not feeling joyous, feeling that emptiness is all that what people are experiencing right now in this second wave.
Yeah. And you mentioned terms, and languishing is one of these terms that has been doing rounds, but I've also heard of revenge bedtime procrastination. What is that, and what does that mean in terms of how people are responding to what's going on in their lives?
Yeah. Okay. Before I respond, I'm going to give you a long answer, if I may. Yeah. Let's start with your day. What does your day really look like? You get up in the morning, the first thing you would do is reach out for your phone, most likely. The moment you open the phone, they are going to be the first thing you are going to do is perhaps open your WhatsApp, your Instagram, in shorts, and what are these platforms really flooded with? Someone has tested positive, someone has succumbed to it. The death toll in each state right now. People talking about COVID, how to stay productive, how to stay positive during this period. That's what all the platforms are talking about. So you really start your day, which is where you're consuming a lot about information around COVID and only COVID mostly. Not true of everyone, but by and large, that's the thing. Then you really get start your day, and then you get to work if you are if you have a job right now, if you're a student, you start with your classes, right, and work. And it's again, even though you're working from home, it's still very hurried. Yeah, which is very surprising, right? But again, some people are having even like quickly gobbling their breakfast or even having working breakfast as well, and they get through that. They start their mornings by mid morning as well. They have been just your barrage of emails, calls that you have to deal with, ending with you ending with even having a working lunch. Yeah. Now, during this period, if someone has been in quarantine in your family, you have to also tend to their needs because they can't step out. Yeah? You have to also coordinate with doctors, with labs for the test results. If someone in the extended family who's in another state and you can't be with them, so the sense of helplessness that's also consuming you at this point in time, trying to check for beds, oxygen cylinders, plasma donors, so on and so forth. But at the same time, your things are going to continue off with your work, calls, emails, also having to perhaps sometimes cook because not everyone has the privilege of having domestic help, and if there is someone who has been quarantined, you cannot even have domestic help visiting you, so having to even manage your meals. Also, if children need online classes, you need to support them, And post lunch as well, your day continues very similar to how your morning was, right? And again, we are in during pandemic, we are always at work, right? There are no boundaries that are being drawn where people are getting requests for calls, meetings, even 8:39 in the night as well, right? Along with the cooking, cleaning, managing logistics, managing children, managing home, and trying to still be able to deliver work, which is again a change. Right, last year people was organizations and different stakeholders internally externally were a lot more patient and tolerant. The fact that timelines are not being met because they felt it's a temporary phase. Now it's business as usual, right? But the demands haven't at work has been as the business would require it, but the personal demands continue to be there. Now the entire day has gone by and you have not got a single moment for yourself, which you would get earlier. At least when you will be commuting to work, we'll have, when you're driving, you listen to music, people listen to podcasts, people catch up with, call their parents and talk to them. Uh, or, when they come back also, they'll go for an evening walk, maybe, grab a cup of coffee, a drink post a dinner, post work, and then come back home. None of that has happened, right? When you're even having calls also in the evening, you'll be having Zoom calls with your parents, family. It's again about, how was your day? I hope you're staying at home. If you need groceries, let me know. I will order it online. How is the person, ex family member doing? Are they recovering well? Conversations again around COVID. So you're constantly, your mind is constantly working, and even when you're resting also, when you're sleeping as well, your phone will beep, urgently require someone. Can you help us coordinate this? Do you know someone? You never admit. So if you really see in the entire day, you have not got a single moment for yourself. So coming to your question about revenge bedtime procrastination, it is a way to claim your freedom back, to find some me time. And what people do is that when the entire day is over, everyone's gone to sleep, no work calls, messages. Can I just take 15 minutes for myself to talk to my sibling, talk to my friends, talk to my family, just catch up that series I've been trying to finish for the last maybe 1 month. Yeah. Or just maybe just to read a bit because that's something I used to enjoy doing it. So people are pushing their sleep time. So that's it, bedtime procrastination. So they're procrastinating their bedtime. It's almost like a revenge that I want this time for myself.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that those 10 minutes is bringing a lot of comfort for people in those moments. So again, I say everyone's responding in their own ways. There's nothing wrong with it, but this is going to catch up because again, if you're not sleeping enough, you're already experiencing insomnia, your body again gets a message that there is threat to survival because you're not sleeping enough, because they can't differentiate why you're not sleeping. The body just knows that they're not getting sleep.
Mhm.
So on average, when we need to, our body requires on average about 8 hours of sleep. People's sleep time has gone down to about five and a half, 6 hours, and this in spite of being at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Smriti, it's standing out to me that even in this kind of behavior, people are trying to cope and trying to respond. And I think in your response, what I'm hearing is there may be ways that we are responding right now that may not really be helping us align ourselves with a long-term vision of, experiencing positive mental health. Because, like you said, certain behaviors are going to catch up with us in the long run. May make us feel good right now, but may cause a little bit of drain or stress or burnout in the future, right? And you know I don't know whether you would want to talk about some of these unhealthy behaviors right now, or if you would also want to spotlight what the healthy alternatives could be, right? What are those alternative ways to respond to aligning ourselves? You're responding to the issue or the situation right now, but you're also aligning yourself with a long-term vision of being stable, experiencing wellness and well-being. I know it's a
Yeah.
long question. You can answer twofold again.
Right. Thank you, Rosanna, for that. Uh, so I think yes. So I think let's just look at how people are responding. So each one of us is responding, and I want, before I even start with my response, I want to say that it's it's okay to be following what is helping you at this point in time, whatever you need at this point in time. Yes, there are certain things which are not healthy at all, which I'm going to spotlight on, but don't let the world tell you how to respond at this point. These are unprecedented times. These are very challenging times. What I just told you about how entire day looks like, this is just a very tiny snapshot, and there is so much more happening, and not just on a single day, for a single week, a single month. It's been going on for a year and a half almost. and in different waves. But the fact that it has been happening and our body has been trying to cope with it, and also, and it's just not whether you've been through it, there's also anticipation of it.
Mhm.
What if I test positive, right? So there is grief coming in, anxiety coming in, regardless of whether you experienced it or not, because that there is this looming threat around us. So it's okay the way you're responding right now. But yes, if you're engaging in certain behaviors like being completely numb, if you're turning to substances and alcohol, like I have a client who would say that, there is so much of loneliness that I'm experiencing right now because I'm just stuck here. Uh, and the sense of stagnation that has come in right now, I can't deal with this emotion. And the only way for me to escape is by turning to drugs or to alcohol to numb that to not feel that loneliness and that emptiness and that heaviness are they experiencing. So those are maladaptive responses, where you're uh, not able to breathe, finding it difficult just to breathe as well, or to sleep. There are also people who are in a like grieving, but they're in the denial stage. Like I have one of the clients who would just be jumping from one relationship to the other relationship. They're on different dating apps, they're meeting different people, new people they've never met before, and it's okay to just be going on these different dates, being with them for some time, and then moving to a different relationship. Again, not healthy ways of coping right now, and and putting themselves out there at risk as well. Yeah. uh, or being in the zone of delusion, fact that COVID cannot hit me, I won't test positive, and somehow they seem to believe that. Constantly bargaining as well, right? The fact that I am vaccinated, if I go out as well, if I get mild symptoms, that would be okay. uh, Another way of denial, I've been seeing that there have been some family members who've tested positive, and their children wanting to go see them because again, seeing that I'm young, it won't really happen to me. And unfortunately, we heard of cases where those young people have succumbed to it, and the parents are okay, and then for them to deal with that guilt, right? So I think in terms of again going back to the stage of denial, anger, bargaining, and how that has not been helpful for us, if it's getting manifest in these ways that I'm talking about. Yeah. Uh, the positive ways of coping has been, I think we have to also acknowledge how resilient we have been until now, right? And I think we should really take that moment, because to be able to do things of being after being confined to our homes for such a long period of time and get through a single day and still be fully functional requires a lot of resilience. And that's what people have demonstrated, right? And I want to just maybe take this moment to spotlight those things that they've been doing, which means staying connected with people. uh, I think people have been talking about this term social distancing, which I think is such a misnomer, because we need social connectedness a lot more right now than distancing. What it really is right now is physical distancing, that we have to be physically at a distance, but socially we need to be connected. I think last year was also easier because people were, because there was so much of, again, novelty attached to it, that people were organizing these Zoom calls, staying connected with people. That has again dropped right now. So how do we really then stay connected? Now, it's both ways, right? That there is this feeling of getting into the solitude that we're getting in, and then how do we really reach out? And if someone wants that space, and I'm also saying that you need to honor people of how they're experiencing, right? So we honor that space, but still keep on checking in. Just not check in once, but constantly checking in, maybe like once a week, once in a fortnight, to know that we are there. It's even okay that if you just call and you don't have to talk. Yeah, I mean, imagine a time when someone was grieving and you would visit them. A lot of times, people will be just sitting there quietly. There's no conversation that's happening. Is it possible for us to do that on calls as well? That's okay. That I'm here. If you want to talk, I'll be here. I'll be listening. And if you do not want to talk, I'm still here for you. Yeah. So I think resilience is going to come in through social support, through social connectedness. It's also again acknowledging our emotions. I'm going to go back to what we've already discussed in the past. Right now, just taking a pause and acknowledging your emotions. That what are you really saying? What is our emotion trying to tell you, and paying heed to it. Uh, I think so. When you talk about this resilience as well, I think let's try and imagine this. It's like a seesaw. Yeah. Where on one side there is this all the negative stresses that you have, and the positive there's another side that brings in the positivity. Yeah. And what really holds goals that is like a fulcrum, is what we call them. Yeah. Firstly, to identify this fulcrum is positioned at different places for each person, right? It's not at the same place. So we cannot expect other people to be responding the way we are responding. Yeah. Secondly, then their negative stresses are there. What is it that we can really do to tip the balance towards a positive favor? Are we putting too much on our plate, like this productivity guilt? I don't have the minds, I don't have the bandwidth. uh, I want to stay connected, but only to a few people, but not to other people. I decide for myself the fact that I'm not going to consume social media or news around COVID when I start my day or when I end my day. That's again tipping my balance, right? Or the fact that when I'm with organizations, supporting them. Organizations have supported with finances, covering, enhancing their insurance cover. So supporting people with the vaccination drives or even the cost of the vaccination as well. That's again how organizations are building resilience for employees. Yeah, for students, again, teachers are having these conversations, check-ins. uh, so there are those different ways that individuals and organizations can really do to tip that balance, to invite that resilience back, which is going to be very helpful during these times as we are coping with the pandemic.
And Smithy, I think, you're already stepping into where my next question was going to go, which is, we aren't just living at home as individuals isolated. We have so many roles in a day. We inhabit so many spaces in a day. And I just want to understand, someone recently told me that I spend more time at work than I do at home, even when I'm working from home. And this is so true for so many of us. And you've touched upon this a little bit, that the boundaries have blurred, that we are working all the time. I think the question that I want to put to you is, does the workplace, the way it is structured, its ethos and culture, does it have a role to play in promoting positive mental health?
Oh, absolutely. A big role, I would say. In their own big role in their own limited capacity. Let me put it that way, right? So I think let's start with the basics. What the organizations have started doing right now is in terms of just, like I said, enhancing the insurance cover. They have built task forces internally to support people who've been tested positive, or the family members have tested positive, and to be able to make arrangements for hospital beds, admissions, and supporting them throughout the period. And I think that has seen a lot of gratitude among the employees. I know some organizations like ENY is doing fabulous job at it, where people have been able to get admissions within 2 to 3 hours itself, right? Not saying the other organizations are not doing it. I mean, that's something I know of. So that all organizations have those task forces. Even vaccination drives. I think a lot of uh, anxiety was also coming in the fact, if I do go for firstly to be on that app, and it's like fastest fingers first, when if I get the slot or not in the morning. So starting with that anxiety and just this pressure, which again is tipping the scale, right, to the negative side. So to be able to organize those vaccination drives in the organizations has been very helpful, because there's understanding of, if I go to that place and what if I get COVID while waiting in the queue, which has been the case for a lot of people, right? So that risk has gone down. You're more assured that's going to be better managed at the organization level. Not that it's not better managed when it's a government setup, but we don't know. It's like, it's again, there's another uncertainty, another unfamiliar context, which also brings anxiety. So those are the basics that they've been able to take care of. Organizations have also worked on their policies, right? Where people have now introduced again now parental leave policies as well. They have where the fathers can or other partners of same sex can take leave like the mother. So I think those policies have also undergone a change. They have policies like paid leaves when you are and unlimited paid leaves. Also, some organizations started like OYO rooms. People have also, like we were talking about this because through the day, like we're discussing the cycle, there is so much happening that there is no time to finish a deliveries, because we are almost like jumping from one call to the next call to the next call. Yeah, which was not the case even earlier, right? At least now you'll have a meeting at 10 o'clock, then you'll have a meeting at 12 o'clock, you'll have some half an hour to even check your emails. Now people don't even have that. They don't even have time to check the emails as well. And as a result, the cycle continues. So people are started saying in some organizations, okay, no calls, no meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays before noon, right? So Citibank has announced that Zoom free Fridays. Oyo Room started saying that's going to be a 4-day week, with giving them a midweek holiday on Wednesdays. So there are the small things people think of how you can. There's some organizations saying, okay, power on Fridays where you invite meditation therapists, and really focus on your positive mental health is what we've been talking about, right? So organizations have been very cognizant and acknowledge that mental health needs to be addressed, and just not physical health during this period, and they have taken steps and policies to make that change possible for people to just support them in that journey.
Mhm.
Also, a lot of organizations have earlier also they were EAP providers, employee assistance program providers, where employees could reach out to therapists free of cost for support. A lot more organizations have tied up with EAP providers, or even having counselors on board, or having these tie-ups as well. So there's a lot of work happening from the organizational front as well to invite that positive mental health
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
people's lives.
And and this is all I'm still seeing at a macro level, at a larger policy level within organizations. But, I want to break it down and I want to understand, Smithy, like what would really be the role of managers, people managers and decision makers within an organization? How can they respond? What do they need to look out for?
So I'm glad you asked this question, because with managers also, I think in their own capacities, I think they're doing a lot of work, even before the policies came in. Like some of the managers I was working with, they said that how they have introduced a blackout hour during the day, which means 1 to 2, no calls, no meetings. So at least you have your lunch not before the screen. Uh, some managers started doing these check-ins right now. There was this all conversation, because we do a lot of work in the posh space as well, right? And we say that no, do not uh, force people to come on video calls right now. But the conversation again changing right now. If people want to come on video calls, it's okay, because I think when you just see a person as well, there is it also enables them to feel that socially connected, right? So organization employees are doing it. A lot of employers have started having these check-ins in the morning and evening with the teams, more one-on-one conversations that they're having right now. Our managers have also been very mindful of the conversation that need to have, because in all the organizations you have certain compliances, certain trainings you need to go through, and now organizations are not doing those trainings anymore unless it's really important. They are saying that if you need some time off, it's perfectly okay. It's okay to say, what, I'm not feeling up to it, right? Or can I take some time off? I'll catch up later. And managers have been very sensitive, and more than that, I think firstly they've created space for people to have conversations. I We consult some organization. What managers have been doing is they've been inviting people from different disciplines to have conversations again, if and again non-mandatory sessions if they want to attend, again, which is going to give a break from work.
Mhm.
Some managers have started saying that we are not going to send emails post 6:30 in the evening, because what happens if someone sends an email at 6:30. So they get an email at 6, they work on it, they send an email at 6:30. They're going to send an email to someone who's going to receive it at 6:30, then they have to work on it, and they are going to respond at 7:30. That means someone else is receiving an email at 7:30. That means they are responding at 8:30, and the chain goes on, right? So as managers, I think they become very, very mindful that even if something
Mhm.
is not critical, let's not do it right now. And even sensitizing them, even having conversation around them, that what is urgent, what is critical. Can we even negotiate with our clients also? Is it okay if we turn in this work? Which has been a challenge for us also, just to assert our boundaries, and we've seen that in the past. But I think managers have started working on themselves to be able to hold space for their team members, which has been very helpful.
Smriti, thank you so much for sharing that sort of cycle of boundaries getting blurred. I think it's I'm smiling because I'm as you said that, I reflected back on my own behavior and when I send emails and what time my manager would receive them. And I think it's called for me to also be a little bit more cognizant of the boundaries of the people around me and my own. So thank you so much for sharing that example. So Smriti, we've talked a lot about other organizations, and I'm going to ask you how you've been walking that talk. How have you and the partners at Posh at Work really responded at a firm level to all of these concerns, right?
Hmm. Yeah. So Posture Work is about 4 years old. Yeah, our startup. It's a young organization. So we've been not been able to do as much as we would like to, but there have been some small steps that we have taken towards it. Even before the second wave hit us very strongly, the way it has right now, we had a 9 day shutdown back in March. We said that we'll not be working for 9 days at a stretch. That meant that the entire firm shuts down. There was email sent to all our clients that our teams will not be working, and we would encourage, we really respect if we can respect this time off for everyone. Uh, and that happened. I think, barring maybe two, I think, critical matters, I think the entire team had a complete shutdown where there were no emails exchanged, no phone calls, no messages, no WhatsApp, nothing that was happening. We call it as a mental health well-being week off. And it was very heartening to see that some of our clients followed suit. Some of our clients also had a similar kind of a week off for their teams, not only in India, but even globally. So that was one heartening step that we saw. Uh, so I think so that was one thing that we did. Apart from that, we have started this 5 to 6 connect time on every Friday, where we again have this 1 hour every week where the teams will not be occupied with any work. No client calls, no client sessions, no meetings, and that's the time where they can connect either with their buddies or their mentors. So in our organization, we have a concept of a buddy where each team member has one buddy where they can just talk about what's really been going on in their personal life, professional life, just to bounce off ideas, insecurities, so on and so forth. And there's also a mentor, which is in addition to the supervisors that they have. So mentors, again, they can really reach out to them to see what's really happening. They're feeling stuck somewhere, uh, career growth, professional growth, personal growth, and they can reach out to the mentor. So 5 to 6 p.m. has been blocked by everyone so that people can either connect with their buddies or with their mentors or even with a therapist if they want to. So that's 1 hour we are giving them every week during work hours. We've also introduced paid leave if someone has been tested positive themselves or their family members. And even if they're going for vaccination and they're falling sick post that, all these are going to be paid leaves, no questions asked when it comes to that. And other teams members are going to pitch in. We have counseling support that we are giving them. So because we are mental health professional in our firm itself, but we cannot have them seeking therapy from each other. So people can reach out to their therapist, and that amount is going to be reimbursed by them. But what we have done is for our clients, so our clients, their employees can reach out to us, and that's going to be pro bono. A space for them to really reach out to us and have a supportive conversation. uh, I think we have more of we always had a parental leave policy as well, which is again like even the fathers or mothers, they can take up to 1 year. It's not limited to the fact that they have to take it immediately after the child is born. Constant check-ins is happening. Remote work is again something we've been dealing with, but again striving for work-life balance, that we do not have people working late hours, and if at all they work late hours or on a non-working day because of a critical assignment, they're given compensatory offs. In addition to all that, what we have done is on our website, we have made a COVID page because when we talk about COVID, I think it's important to understand that it's just not the COVID part of it, and as part of the pandemic or the mental health, but there are also a lot of other things that comes around it. What if there has been an untimely demise and there was no will? What happens? Uh, about the fact that my insurance company is not covering my claims. What do I do in those situations, right? And these are practical challenges that people are experiencing, but no, there's not enough data. And where do I go scrambling for that information? So on COVID page on our website, we have collated all the possible resources, be it from the helplines, case laws around these will insurance companies, mental health resources, and all that other secondary, tertiary factors also that get impacted and that impact our life with COVID. We've been able to address that, and that's freely available for anyone to access on our website. So that's just not going to be helpful for the team, but we're hoping could also be helpful for the society at large.
Smriti, thank you for sharing those tips, strategies, those practices with everyone. And I'm sure people in leadership roles listening in will have takeaways from all of this. I can say that, as an employee at Watch at Work, it's always been helpful that each and every one of the partners has created space to hear out each and every one of us, created space to have conversations like this. it really does feed into this feeling of stability and wellness. We are going to step into our last part, of this conversation where we are going to be talking about self-care. But I do want to just, ask a couple of questions before we get into that, that have come up in the chat, Smriti. So, the first question is, different ways of grieving is surprising us. Can you throw some light on this? What does it mean to grieve in different ways?
Right. So you say grieve in different ways. I think let's look at how our culture really tells us of, or society tells us how do we need to grieve. Our society tells us we need to grieve by keeping busy or talking it out. Yeah. And that's not the only way to grieve. Some people prefer not to talk and just creating that space for them. That some people may want to talk about it. They want to talk about their loved ones, what really happened, go over it again and again. And that is okay if you want to do. Some people may want to just take some time off and just be with themselves right now and not talk, which is also okay at this point in time. If it goes on for a long period of time and that longing, yearning goes, then yes, we need to get professional help. But immediate response to it is perfectly okay to just not talk. The idea is that keep yourself busy, distract yourself, not think about it. That's again what our culture tells us right now. But what we're doing when we're doing keeping ourselves busy and distracted, that means we're not again connecting with our emotions. We're not allowing us to. It's a deep loss. We have not just not lost a person when we are grieving. And I'm taking the example of the loss of a loved one. We've just not lost that person, right? We have lost all those memories, all those dreams that we had of things that we will do together, all those hopes of the possibilities of what would have been if the person was alive. There's loss of identity. If it's been a parent of not having a father figure, or a parent or a grandparent for that matter, who used to turn to for advice, loss of that mentor, uh, loss of this world that they had created, because we are always very different with different people, we share very different dynamics. We are losing that part of ourselves also, right? So when so there is loss at so many levels that we're talking about, right? And people are going to respond not only to that person, but they're going to also be responding with that to that emptiness, that what am I going to do, to that confusion. Yeah. And people will respond to that differently, and that's why grieving process looks very different for different people, because you don't know what exactly they're grieving, and sometimes they're grieving so much. Yeah. If you're looking at grieving, maybe say opportunities, they could also be related to your self-worth, the fact that I'm lagging behind. Or say, for example, some people may have lost their jobs, right? Again, comparison to other people. It's also loss of lifestyle. A lot of the things that you will need to readjust in your life and realign. So people will be also be responding to all that, and that's how the grieving process is very different. I hope that answers the person's question.
And I was just thinking, Smriti, as you were speaking, some people do have this need to talk about their grief. And, it would be very interesting if they actually live with people who don't want to talk about the grief. And then the conflict that may arise from there.
Yeah.
To, I think it's so important that you've spotlighted that different people have different ways of grieving, because it just gives that additional understanding into it's not that people don't want to talk to me, but their process may look very different. And thank you so much for shedding light on that. There is one more question. What is the reason behind emotional breakdown in a very young and new relationship?
Can you repeat the question? Because I think I would require some more information, but yeah, which you can come. I'll
um,
try and
so
respond to
this
it.
is all the information that's there. What are the reasons behind emotional breakdown in a very young and very new relationship? And I'm wondering if we can contextualize this, with the stressors of this time, and what does it even mean to begin a relationship in the first place
Yeah.
in a pandemic?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So I think there could be multiple reasons for an emotional breakdown. Like you said, if you had to contextualize it to what's really been happening, the time how often you would meet a person, and in different contexts how you will meet a person and get an understanding of the person, their friends, family, interest. Nothing of that is there right now. So even just to relate to it, right, will be very difficult. And if you really look at the newness in a relationship as well, you're trying to figure out a person. There's so much of excitement around spending time together, feeling loved, going on dates, meeting their friends, knowing how they interact with their other friends as well, seeing movies and seeing, do we have common taste or not. None of that has been possible. And if you really see, these are the different experiences that also come into the conversation where the emotional bond gets formed. And in the absence of that, people are also really struggling right now what to talk about. If you're saying don't talk about COVID, talk about normal things. And in a new relationship, that's all the more difficult because we don't know, right? The other thing that emotional breakdown can happen because, like I said, that no one is operating at the baseline level at this point in time. Everyone is experiencing stress, and everyone is at a different part of a curve. So there's this curve as well that we have. I don't think we have enough time for me to get into the details of it as well, right? But people can be at different points in time on that curve as well. Yeah. And if you're not able to understand how people are responding, it's not them, it's the situation. There is going to be a breakdown that's going to happen. So I think one thing that I can say here is that, which from my narrative training is that, person is not the problem is the problem. So when people are lashing out, there is irritation coming, there's annoyance coming in, don't associate that with the person, especially in this stage, and especially when it's a new relationship right now, because they're just responding to what's been happening with them, around them right now. That's not who they are. So if you really are hopeful about this relationship, you need to be very, very patient, right? And along with that, taking care of yourself as well, because you will also be operating in a very different mode than you already are. Uh, and that's why I think the relationship is going to be very fragile, and they can break down, and emotional breakdown can happen because you may feel the person is not checking in on me right now. They didn't even send me a good morning. They didn't say I love you keeping the phone down right now. And we start taking very personally, is the person still interested in me? And we end up crying. And anyway, because we are also in such a fragile state that anything that happens is going to trigger us. I hope I've been able to respond to the person's query. Uh,
Sure. Smriti, and you're bringing up something, and I just want to ride on that momentum. You are bringing up, taking care of yourself. And this is something that, I really wanted to close with. A lot of people have been talking about self-care, I think confusing it with some amount of positivity and being positive all the time. The question I want to pose to you right now is, what can self care look like in the context of a pandemic? When the narratives are saturated with uncertainty, hopelessness, loss, when there are restrictions, when you can't just go out for a cup of coffee, you can't keep to any sense of routine, what can self care look like? Just for all of us to be aligned with.
so I think some of the aspects I've already covered. I would like to reiterate here is also the basic stress management techniques to begin with, right? Because, like I said, your body is in a fight or flight response mode at this point in time. It's a time you need to trick your body. So self care would include, having your meals, sleeping well, try and reduce the revenge bedtime procrastination. It's important, but to see if you can limit it to some extent at this point in time. Movement, very, very important, because there is so much energy that's pent up in your body, right? And I'm sure you can feel it as well. Some people may be experiencing migraines, backaches, headaches, shoulder pains, stiffness in your body, and that's all because of all the pent up, bottled up energy in your body as a response to fight or flight response. So movement, very important, as much as you can do. Skipping at home, yoga at home, pranayam, breathing, meditation, those are the basic stress management techniques. Eating well, just being nutrition, just be mindful of not getting into eating too much of sugary stuff, high carb diet as well, because your body again cannot really burn out all of that. And then that's going to again affect your I mean, unfortunately, there is a lot of self worth that gets associated in terms of appearance, yeah, which again reduces, starts affecting people at different levels. So basic stress management techniques. Secondly, I think if you're working from home or studying from home, have designated workspaces. Very important. Have watertight boundaries where when you're working, then you're only working. Don't try and multitask. It's a myth that multitasking is a great attribute to have. It's not. Focusing on one thing at a time and getting it done is very important. Uh, we also call a strategy called time boxing, or where you basically box time for each activity that you value the most. Yeah. And that would also mean boxing time for yourself, boxing time for you with your partner, with your children, because otherwise the work can take the entire day, right? And then that will leave us feeling again guilty, angry, and just invite so many emotions in our life which are not really wanted at this point in time. So boxing that, designated workspaces. I think what I really also talk about. Some people tend to sit on their beds and work with their laptops. You you're confusing your mind. Your mind doesn't know the fact that you are working from, you're just right now working from bed. Otherwise, bed is to sleep. Mind is getting mixed signals. So if you have your designated corners, if you have that, if you have those space, and that is a possibility in your context right now. Work happens only in one corner of your house. Sleep happens only in one another corner of your house. uh, Recreation happens in another corner. Meals happen at one corner of your house. Designated work spaces is very, very important for you to be able to get through each and every day. Because otherwise, if you're working on your bed, when you go to bed to sleep, your mind is saying that, I need to be active and I need to be focusing hard because I was also working here. So mind cannot switch that way. When you're working again, get dressed. I would say even wear your heels and formal shoes and sit down to work. You would see a marked difference in your productivity and attention levels. Yeah, so that's from the workspace and a point of view as well. Draw boundaries, for yourself and even for other people as well. uh, just do what is really important to be done and shut work or your classes the day, how you were doing pre-pandemic times. Also, if it's 6:30, it's okay if you can't get out, do something else. Yeah, it will be very important to also be very mindful of what you're consuming in terms of content. Yeah. Are you starting your day with COVID news, information around that with other people as when you're checking in also around COVID, you're ending your day with it? Again, it's going to play on your mind. Can you have fixed times when you do check-ins, when you read the news? Not that you don't have to be updated, do that, but have fixed hours. And that's what you'll do. So maybe 5 to 6 in the evening, 7 to 8 in the evening, but let not this be the first activity that you start with or the last activity that you end with. One thing I would even suggest is stop using phones as alarm clocks. Very small thing, but what's really important, we do so much of work, so much of check-ins on our phone right now. That phone, our mind has made that association with the phone. So the first thing, when you get a beep also on your phone, your body gets into an actions mode immediately. Buy an alarm clock. It's worth the investment. Yeah. The other thing is also, if you have to, one thing is going to be really helpful is have fun, as much fun as you can right now. That's going to really build resilience. Going to bring in endorphins right now. Anything that you do, something maybe that you were doing the last year, in your own way. Don't let the world tell you. Don't let people tell you what you need to. But whatever is your idea of fun, it, and not feel guilty about it. Like one of my clients said that, she used to buy flowers every week because that's going to bring a lot of cheer in the house, and she started feeling guilty about it. So she said, when people do not have money, people are losing jobs. Is it okay for me to buy flowers? And it is okay, right? Because you have to take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, how will you even take care of other people? Because your resources are going to be completely depleted. Yeah. The analogy I often use is like recharge, how you recharge your phones every night for it to serve its function of messages, calls. You need to recharge yourself. And if that means buying those flowers, doing some online shopping, just dancing or humming along with music, so be it. Yeah. And set aside time for worry. Worry is going to come. Some days will be hard. Uh, we cannot be positive all the time, and it's, you don't have to be. Don't have that pressure on yourself. Will be very important. uh, and just identify what is under your control, what is under your control right now, and just do that. Yeah? uh, and otherwise just let go of it. Yeah, so these are just some of the strategies that I've touched upon. I know we have way past our time right now. uh,
Yeah. Sure, Smriti, we do have another question, and may I read it? I know we are a little pressed for time. I have contractual staff in office, and a bunch of them lost jobs. Now they are giving a threat calls to the HR. How to deal with the situation in spite to convincing them about the current situation?
Okay. Firstly, I know how hard the situation must be and so challenging and to be. Now, again, let's pause and see, what are they responding to? When people have lost their jobs, they lost their livelihood right now, there is so much of worry and anxiety. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of their family members? What if they're going to be? It's just not loss of job, right? It's loss of finances also, loss of stability and finance when you need it the most at this point in time. Uh, I would suggest these are difficult situations, but if it's possible, because with those contract workers, they will have some representatives, have a conversation. What is it that they really need, right? Or perhaps you cannot have, because businesses are also affected. So to say that to hire them back is not a solution for businesses, but it's just something that can happen. So a lot of organizations have also started this, that even people have lost their jobs, some benefits have continued. So can they still cover them maybe for the other benefits as a short-term gap arrangement at this point in time? Say for example, the insurance cover or vaccination, or maybe just supporting them with the food. A lot of NGOs are doing some incredible work, and if we can have tie-ups, the organization can have tie-ups with them to at least support them with everyday sustenance, which is going to be the biggest fear, right? For example, for schools, can they really talk to schools and strike a deal with, the fees could be subsidized? So there could be different things, right? So see how they can support them with the day-to-day living at this point in time, if not getting the jobs back, if that's a possibility, and hearing them out, acknowledging what they're experiencing, and just sometimes when you just people feel heard, that also brings their anger, those emotions, it just tones down those emotions, and if that can be a possibility.
Smriti, just in response to this question and also to close this conversation, at what time should people seek professional support, mental health support, right? We have been talking about what we can do to support ourselves and what we can do to support others. But there is a point where we realize that there is a need for a professional to come in and handle this. What is that point? What does that point look like?
So that point would look like in terms of when there is persistent struggle with your sleep, uh, right? There are also thoughts of self-harm, harming others. There is more violent outbursts that seem to be taking place. Like I said, people jumping in from one relationship to the other relationship, just feeling very scared to just pause because they feel that they're going to break down, and they've been dealing with that. There have been multiple losses that they've experienced. Uh, if they have turned to unhealthy ways of dealing with the situation, like I said, substances, relationships, throwing themselves into work constantly. If there also been difficulty to accept the loss, the yearning and the longing for the person to come back, ruminating on those on their memories and not being able to align their life back uh, to the world, then I think those are times to reconnect with a professional. Again, in terms of drop in motivation, persistently, where even taking just grooming is becoming a struggle. Self care is becoming a struggle, and the basic things that are not being able to focus at all at work. Those are all signs that one needs to reach out for help. But again, having said that, you can even reach out to help when you're languishing, when there is low mental well-being as well. Even when you're flourishing, and even when you are in a good mental state as well, just to do these constant check-ins to see how what is it that you're doing that's also helping you to stay resilient, stay, invite that calmness and peace in your thing. Uh, because when you talk about mental health, there has been so much of stigmatization around it that I think pandemic has allowed us to address mental health, and it's okay wherever you are on the spectrum, right? Because just because you're here today in a positive mental health state does not mean that you're not vulnerable to going down the spectrum on the spectrum. Yeah. So just having that support constantly is going to be helpful, especially if you do not have support systems in place. You don't have anyone to talk to at this point in time. Check in with a therapist, and it's perfectly okay.
Thank you so much, Smriti. We are past time, and I think it's time to close this conversation. But it's been wonderful, as always. It is for me to be in conversation with you. Thank you so much for spotlighting. What is helpful, what we need to look out for, what are the breaking points that we need to be aware of, and when to seek professional help. It's been extremely beneficial to even hear what it means for people in leadership roles to really respond to the crisis of the pandemic. So thank you so much, for being with us today. And, if there's anything that you want to say, just before we close this conversation to the people who've tuned in.
Just want to say that these are challenging times. These are unprecedented times, and you have been doing you've been doing what best you can do at this point in time, and it's okay to be the way you are, and just acknowledge your emotions. Is what I would say at this point in time. Just be with your emotion. Take a pause. Do not be under this pressure of having to do something every single day. The best thing that you can do right now is also to rest, yeah, and not feel guilty while you're doing that. Not feel guilty when you're resting, not feel guilty when you're happy, not feel guilty when you just have a moment of joy, uh, and because that does not mean that you're being oblivious or being insensitive to what's happening around you. It's just a moment to take care of yourself, to enable you to help other people around you.
Thank you, Smriti. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today, for your questions and your engagement. I think I'm going to echo what Smriti said and just, may you all find what it is that has made you resilient in all of this time. And may you nurture that part of who you are. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna. Take care. Bye.